How's everyone doing? I am Dylan from All You Can Board. Welcome back to another Marvel Champions video. We finally have a brand new hero announcement. We knew this one was coming. We had been teased about it a few weeks back in that in-flight reporter, I think it was called around Gen Con. We knew Vision was coming. They said we were going to get the preview article. It has finally landed today. I jumped on this video as quickly as I could. I'm actually really excited about this hero. I've mentioned it a few times. I actually really like protection. I know it's not all around one of the most powerful aspects or one of the ones that people gravitate towards, but I really enjoy playing protection. So when I found out that we were going to be getting a slew of new protection cards in Vision, I was pretty pumped, and everything I've seen so far is super exciting. So we're going to jump into all these new cards. There's a lot of cool stuff going on here, and we're going to break down every single one and talk about Vision as a whole. So the first thing to talk about is the fact that there is a 16th signature card rather than 15 like we normally get. And the reason there's 16 is because there is this special card that is always in play with Vision that has two sides to it, and you're going to be flipping between the two sides, the two forms, and that is a lot of the mechanics that basically gravitate around Vision and what he's trying to do. So I'm going to jump into that card first before I jump into the alter ego and the hero card, because I think it's important to understand that card before you see the abilities on the hero and alter ego form. So the first side we're going to look at is the intangible side. So again, it says mass form. So this is his mass form card. It's permanent. It is always in play. It's part of the setup that we'll see on the actual hero card. It's always going, or the alter ego side, it's always going to be in play. The intangible side says Vision cannot attack or defend. So very key, you are not attacking or defending while you're in this form. However, reduce the amount of damage Vision takes from each attack by 2, which is a huge deal. The fact that every single attack is going to be reduced by 2, I mean, that can completely negate a whole bunch of minions that you might be facing. For a lot of villains, especially first stage villains, that could potentially negate an entire attack as long as there's not some crazy boost added onto it. So that is a huge deal. You're going to want to be in this form if you ever know you're going to be taking a hit. Perhaps you want to flip to this form after you've done everything on your turn to be able to sort of accomplish your attacks and everything you want to do. You know you don't need to defend. You just want to mitigate all the damage that's going to be coming towards you. So that is the intangible side. The other side of this is the dense side. Now dense, again, it's mass form, it's permanent. This one, while in hero form, Vision gets +2 attack and +2 defense, and the response is after you change to this form, draw 1 card. So again, this is your more offensive side. This is when you're actually going to be on the offensive, doing things with attacking, or you're planning to defend and be using some of the defense events that are in the deck, and you're going to have your defense actually increased, and you're going to be prepared to do that. And again, when you change this form, you're going to be drawing a card, which you can essentially view as like, increasing your hand size if you use this effectively and timely. So you want to try to time when you're changed to this form as well. So having all that information now, we're going to jump into the actual alter ego form. The alter ego form, of course, is Vision. It has a recovery of 3, hand size of 5. So normally we've seen, a lot of alter ego forms where you get like a hand size of 6 in alter ego and a hand size of 5 in hero. That's pretty standard. This is a 5 hand size alter ego form. But the reason that is because we'll get to it on the ability here. But the first one is while you are in dense mass form, you get +2 recovery. So if you have that card on the dense side, now you have a recovery of 5, which is a big deal to have on your alter ego card. Be an easy way to heal up. But while you're in an intangible mass form, you get +1 hand size, which puts you to 6. Now, you might look at this and say, it's weird because you're increasing your hand size, but basically to get to the regular normal hand size we see on most alter ego forms, you essentially have to be in a specific form. And yes, that's true, but the fact is, if we go back and look at dense form says after you change to this mass form, draw 1 card. Now, what you can do here, and the key is if you start your turn in alter ego form and intangible form, you will have a hand size of 6. You can flip to hero form. You can flip to dense mass form at some point on your turn and draw a card because of that, because that's what happens when you change to dense mass form, which now you can look at having a hand size of 7 instead of 6. So I think that's why they included it here. Otherwise, if it was starting with 6, you could have a hand size of up to 8 with Vision very often, which would be very powerful. So the fact that you can reliably have a hand size of 7 whenever you time things, perfectly like that, that's a pretty big deal. You can have a really efficient game plan with Vision. And then, of course, the last ability that's listed on his is just the setup, which is put your mass form upgrade into play, intangible side face up. You will start in intangible form. That is the alter ego form. If we go to the hero form, you'll see quickly why Vision gets +2 attack and +2 defense when he is in intangible form, and that is because he has 0 attack and 0 defense and 2 thwarts. So he starts off with what looks like really low stats, but if you're in the right form, he essentially gets 2s across the board. You'll always be able to rely on the 2 thwart, which is kind of nice, but specifically if you're looking to attack or defend, you're going to want to be in intangible form, or sorry, in dense form. I said in intangible form. In dense form to be able to actually be able to do something with your attack and your defense. The ability that he has is how he changes forms. So the way you're going to be changing forms is with this density manipulation. Change mass form by flipping your mass form upgrade over. You can do that only once per round. So you're going to be flipping ideally in a way that, you know, lets you maximize what you're doing on your turn and protects you going into the enemy turn, the villain turn. So very, very cool. I like when we get these new mechanics introduced that sort of, you know, introduce things that we haven't really seen with a lot of heroes. It sounds like some of this might be similar to Spectrum. Spectrum has 3 different forms. It's a different mechanic, but like it's close, I would say, to Spectrum, but I haven't been able to get my hands on Spectrum and really play Spectrum yet because I still don't have Mad Titan Shadow, so I can't really completely make that comparison. But I like what I'm seeing with Vision. I like this idea of flipping forms and doing it in a timely way to maximize your hand size, maximize the damage you're doing, and limit the damage you're taking as well. Very cool. Okay, let's jump into the actual cards we're going to be seeing in Vision's deck. So starting with the signature cards, the first one we're going to look at is Vision's Cape. This is a 2-cost upgrade. While you are in dense mass form, gain Retaliate 1. While you're in intangible mass form, gain Stalwart, which of course protects you from confusion and from stun. So really, really good card. This stays in play. You're going to get a benefit depending which form you're in all the time, which is really good. The Stalwart, every time you're in intangible mass form, is pretty darn good. You're already limiting the damage that you take in intangible mass form by 2 on every single attack. Now you're also protected from those status effects. That makes you pretty much almost impenetrable, which, you know, fits the thematics of Vision. I like what they're doing here. It's just very, very powerful. And of course, having Retaliate 1 in dense form, also very, very good when you're going more on the offensive, to have that boost when you're attacked to be able to do some damage back. So really good card. Obviously one you're going to hope to get out early, and it's going to allow you to just sort of put yourself in a really good position for the rest of the game. Love that upgrade. Next one is Solar Beam. This is the one that if you know me and you know what I usually talk about and gravitate towards, when you saw this card, you're like, oh, Dylan from All You Can Board is definitely going to love this card. I love my big attack cards. Not only is this a big attack card, the flexibility on this is unbelievable in my opinion. I love it. So this is a 3-cost event that when the first hero action is if Vision is in dense mass form, deal 7 damage to an enemy. So that's your offensive form. If you're in intangible mass form, remove 5 threat from a scheme. So 7 damage for 3, obviously a solid number, solid card in its own right, but being able to, in the other form, also remove 5 threat from a scheme, that flexibility on a single card to sort of do whatever you need on a given turn, depending what the situation calls for, is really, really good. I don't know how many copies of this are in the deck. I could have done some sleuthing and tried to see like what the numbers on the bottom of the cards are to try to guess, you know, if there's more than one copy. I would imagine there likely is. That's more just me hoping there is, because I love that card. But yeah, I love cards with flexibility that allow you to do multiple different things depending what the game demands. And both of the things on this are just really solid numbers. 7 attack or 5 threat removal. Solar Beam is a really, really good card. I love it. Next up, we have Density Control. So this is an upgrade that costs 1. Hero response: after you change mass form, discard this card from play. Add a Vision event from your discard pile to your hand. So again, you can look at this as essentially drawing a card on a later turn, but you're tutoring for a specific card in your discard pile. So it's better in many ways than drawing a card, because you know what you're grabbing and you can grab something that specifically applies to the situation you find yourself in. So yes, you're paying 1 card for this and the card itself. You're essentially paying 2 cards to draw a card later. But I look at that as the fact that it's still a completely amazing trade-off, because you're going to get to grab that exact specific Vision event card that you want from your discard pile, perhaps a card that you've already used and you really want to be able to use it again before having to shuffle everything back into your deck. Great card. It's going to allow for, you know, turns where you were able to, you know, what maybe that's Solar Beam, for instance, and you just had this amazing Solar Beam swing for 7. Now you can go grab it and do it again potentially on the next turn. So very good card. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of combos that it enables as well in Vision's deck. Next, we have Phase Disruption. This is a 2-cost event. Maybe it's one of the events you want to grab. Play only if Vision is in Intangible mass form. So this one's actually limited to you being in the right form to be able to play it. Otherwise, it can't be played. Hero action can confuse an enemy. Choose an attachment on that enemy with the text hero action or hero response and discard that attachment. So if you're wondering what that means, there are often attachments that get added to villains, as I'm sure you're aware, that basically power up the villain in some way, and the only way for you to remove many of them is to do a certain response or to pay a certain amount of resources from your hand. Basically, it limits you to be able to get rid of this, and often you have to decide whether you're just going to leave it on and deal with the consequences or hinder your turn to be able to get rid of it. This is I don't know that we've actually seen a card released in the game yet that basically gets you to circumvent those requirements, but I really love this card because not only are you confusing the enemy and putting yourself in a good position, you're removing one of those cards for free, and for a cost of 2, that's a pretty good trade-off. I mean, normally a lot of them, it's a good thing the confusion is on there, because normally if a card says you need to use 3 resources to get rid of it, you're using 2 cards and this card, which is essentially 3 resources, to get rid of it. The difference here, and the reason it's better, is because often there'll be a requirement saying it has to be these specific resources. Now you don't even have to worry about the resources. You're just paying for this card with whatever you want. Plus, it's adding on the confusion on top of it to be able to give you an extra benefit to what you're doing. So it's a better trade-off. It allows you to get rid of a card, still paying potentially the same amount of cards to do so, but adding some extra pros on top of it, and in a much easier to accomplish way. So very cool card. I imagine we're probably only getting like 1 copy of this. It's just a more of a niche card that you can use from time to time, but still very, very cool. I'm glad we're seeing something like that in the game. Next up, we have Mass Increase. This is a 1-cost event. You can only play this if Vision is in dense mass form. Hero Interrupt. When Vision defends, prevent all damage from that attack and then stun the attacking enemy after that attack resolves. Very good card for 1. You still are going to exhaust Vision, so you're still going to have to, that would put this card way over the top. So you're still going to exhaust Vision to do the defense, but the fact that you prevent all the damage that comes through and you stun the enemy for a single cost. I believe, I haven't played Spider-Man in a while, but one of Spider-Man's cards, Backflip, I think it is. I think that's just straight up prevent all the incoming damage, if I'm not mistaken. I don't even know if you have to defend on that. It's been a while since I played Spider-Man. But the fact that you are, for 1, negating all the damage and stunning the enemy, that is a really solid card, and all you have to do is just have defended against an attack. So yes, you've exhausted your hero, but I think it's a pretty solid trade-off. Stunning the villain essentially means that your next turn is now, you've negated all the damage from this turn and potentially all the damage from the next turn as well. So awesome card. We're definitely only getting 1 copy of this in the deck. I think you can even tell by the indicated number of it being 16 out of 16. I think the last one was 15. So it's not going to come up all the time, but man, this is a solid card, and you're going to feel really safe when that is in play. Okay, the next card we're going to talk about, and then we're going to go into the cards that it really affects, because this is a niche card, but that niche is being opened up by what's being included in this deck. So this is 616 Hickory Branch Lane, which is a 1-cost support. Alter Ego action, exhaust this card and search your deck and discard pile for an android ally and add it to your hand. So you might be thinking, which allies out there are androids? And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, I haven't gone back through all the allies in the game to see which other ones are androids, if there are any androids, but I can tell you that we are getting a bunch of new android allies to make this extra powerful in Vision's deck. And again, whenever we see these mechanics, this is going to constantly evolve as the game evolves. As we get more android allies introduced into the game, the possibilities and the power of this card is going to increase. So if we get some really crazy android allies in the future, you're going to want to come back to Vision and try them in this deck and see what it's like to be able to basically tutor for them specifically. So which android allies are we getting? First of all, obviously getting any android ally you want for this support card every single alter ego turn if you want, because it's not discarded, you're just exhausting. You can constantly be searching for androids. Obviously, that is an amazing card. Every time you go to alter ego form, you can be grabbing an ally for yourself. That's unbelievable. But let's look at some android allies and actually see what we're going to be grabbing. So the first one is Vivian. So Vivian is actually a Vision-specific signature ally. I'm not familiar with Vivian in the comics. That's I actually haven't read a lot of Vision's comics specifically. So if anyone wants to comment and tell me how she relates to Vision, or what how she ties into the comics, I'd obviously be interested to hear that. This is a 2-cost ally with 2 health, 1 thwart, 1 attack, a consequential damage on each. She is an android. While you are in intangible mass form, Vivian gets +2 thwart. While you are in dense mass form, Vivian gets +2 attack. And I just realized that the flavor text on here says, "I love you, daddy." So I imagine this is Vision's daughter. That would make a lot of sense. But so basically you're gonna get either 3 thwart and 1 attack, or 3 attack and 1 thwart. Now you can obviously do those twice because she has 2 health unless you're healing her up in some way. So you can look at that as doing like 3 attack and 3 thwart for 2, doing 6 attack for 2 or 6 thwart for 2. Both of those situations are phenomenal. And of course, you could also just look at it as doing 3 attack or 3 thwart and soaking up a hit. Either way, that's a really, really good trade-off for 2. That's a really good bang for your buck. So I think Vivian's going to be really, really great, especially for the fact that you can constantly be grabbing her again using the previous support card that we just looked at with the super long name that I'm not going to say again. But so yeah, Vivian seems really, really good. It's going to be one of the ones you're grabbing a lot and just was very, very efficient for you. And you're okay with Vivian potentially doing 2 attacks and dying right away for basically 6 damage or 2, because you can just grab her back again with that support card. So it's not this thing where you have to wonder like, do I want Vivian to go away right now? Grab her again, play her again. She's really cheap. It's easy to get her out. So really, really good card. The next ally, so there's a lot of allies introduced in this pack. So there's actually 2 more protection allies and a neutral ally, all of which are androids, I believe. So you're gonna have 4 androids in this deck that you can search for. So if you're worried about there not being enough, you're starting off big with 4. There's probably only going to be more in the future. So the next one is Victor Mancha. This is also a 2-cost ally, but a really interesting one because for 2 costs, you get 4 health and 0 thwart and 0 attack with the consequential damage on each. So the only way you're doing any thwarting or attacking is if you power this card up. But the ability says reduce the amount of damage Victor Mancha takes from each attack by 1. So for 2 costs, this has the potential to be one of the best chump blockers out there. We talk about 2-cost allies being specifically used sometimes just to soak up hits. For 2 costs, you're getting 4 health on this and all attacks being reduced by 1, which means that Victor can probably take several hits and be okay, especially if we're talking like, Ultron drones and things like that. That could be like taking 0 damage and blocking all those hits and not even having to worry about them. So very cool card. You're definitely going to want to include this in a lot of protection decks where you're just wanting to keep your hero safe while it does other things without having to defend all the time. Victor is going to do a lot of work for you for very cheap. So especially if you have ways to power up Victor as well, I mean, then you can start getting attacks and everything in. But again, the damage is only limited from attacks, not from the consequential damage. Either way, very interesting card, a full blocker, and that's the entire point of using Victor. So for all the times we've talked about allies and said, oh, it has all these abilities, but it's really just uses a chump blocker. That is exactly what Victor is used for, and that's exactly what you want to use Victor for. Very neat card. I can't wait to test that one out. Next one we have is Jocasta, I believe, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. This is a 3-cost ally with 3 health, 2 thwart, and 1 attack, and there's 2 consequential damage on the thwart. You may play the event attached to Jocasta as if it were in your hand. So you might be wondering, how do you get an event attached to her? Well, response after Jocasta enters play, you're going to choose a defense event in your discard pile and attach to her face down. So basically, you're going to want to play her when you've already played a really useful defense event and it's in your discard pile. You're going to get that card back immediately, a card of your choice that is a defense event, attach it to Jocasta, and that basically can stay on her until you want to use it. It's like an extra card in your hand that is there until you play it. So very, very good card. I think the strength of this card really depends on which defense events you're grabbing and how effective they are. The fact that you can keep it there and use it at the most optimal time is really, really good. And there's a ton of different, there's tons of defense events. We're getting a bunch more in this pack that you could be potentially hitting with this. So I think the mileage is going to really vary on the situation, which deck you're using it in, but it's a really interesting card nonetheless. And I think you're definitely going to get some use out of it. It really just depends what you hit with it. Obviously the stats aren't super efficient for 3 costs, especially the thwart. You're not going to be wanting to thwart with Jocasta too much unless you absolutely have to. But again, I think the point of her is to soak up some hits after you've played the defense event that specifically you've attached to her. So very, very cool card. Also an android, of course, and an Avenger. And lastly, we have another android. This is a neutral android. This is Machine Man, another 2-cost allies. We're getting 3 2-cost allies in this deck. 3 health, 1 thwart, 1 attack, consequential damage on each. When Machine Man attacks or thwarts, spend up to 3 resources of any type. Machine Man gets +1 thwart and +1 attack for each resource spent this way. I actually really like this card, and the reason I like this card is that there are times when, every turn you want to try to maximize your hand. You want to try to use as many cards as you can efficiently to use everything in your hand, but there are turns where you end up discarding something or you're deciding whether you should keep it for a future turn. Machine Man makes it so that any cards you would have left over in your turn, you don't have to try to look at and say, do I want to try to use my cards in a different way to be more efficient because I'm basically just going to discard this card? You can turn those cards into damage now. Basically, every card becomes a damage or every card becomes a thwart. You're just doing those up to 3 on Machine Man. You could even just be in a situation where you're a couple damage shy from killing a minion, or you're a couple damage shy from taking out the villain, and now you can just turn your cards into damage with Machine Man. And you can do that up to 3 times because no matter what you pump the attack and thwart up to, the consequential damage remains at 1. So I really like this card. I think that it's going to be one of those ones that's just really efficient in certain situations and allows you to just get the extra damage you need or the extra thwart you need when otherwise you wouldn't have been able to achieve those things. So really good card. And again, another card you can search for with Vision with that support card. So it's going to be a great target for Vision. Really like all these allies. I think my favorite one is still probably Vivian. I just, by the way I play, but Victor Mancha is also super, super interesting. And Machine Man is really good. And Jocasta obviously has some great potential as well. So awesome allies in this pack. We're going to move on to some defense cards that they showed us. The first one is Defiance. A 0-cost event, Hero Interrupt. When a boost card on an enemy attacking you would be turned face up, discard it instead. So anytime the enemy is going to attack you and there's going to be a boost card turned up, you can basically play this event and you can just discard whatever it is that you're going to turn. I think based on the way I'm reading this, you don't get to look at it and then decide, oh, that's a 3 boost, I want to discard it. You're deciding before you flip it, which means you might flip it sometimes and say, oh, I didn't even need to discard that. But it still is really useful because it costs you 0. You're basically just, if you might be in a situation where you're like, hey, I am fine unless this boost is 2 or unless this boost is 3. This is just that fail safe. It's like, hey, in case I was going to get super unlucky, I'm just going to play this card and protect myself from potentially an unlucky loss here or something. So for 0 cost, and I think specifically with Vision, because if you're in the right form, you're reducing all attacks to you by 2, you can guarantee yourself to take no damage. If the villain's attacking for 2 and the only way you were going to take damage is if there's a boost associated with it, play Defiance, and now you're guaranteed to take nothing. So very, very cool card. I think that's going to be really useful in Vision specifically and across a lot of protection decks. Next up, we have Flow Like Water with some sick art on this card. I think that's Shang-Chi, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. 2-cost upgrade. Play under any player's control, max 1 per player. After you play a defense card, deal 1 damage to an attacking enemy, and this stays in play. So if you get this out early, I think this is going to be a really fun card to play in protection, because often in protection decks you want to find ways to still deal damage. This is going to reward you for playing your defense cards by giving you more damage. So and it's always to the attacking enemy. It's like not like you're able to choose specifically, but that's still really, really good. You can play defense events and have the reward of taking off, status effects with that 1 damage, or just slowly chipping away at minions or the villain. I really like this card. I think getting this out early is going to be key, and it's going to enable you to do a lot of really cool things. So, and just deal a whole lot of damage over time. I imagine over the extent of a game, this could add up a lot with all the defense events you're playing. And the last card we're going to look at is a basic card. This is Reboot, not the cartoon. This is, I was a little disappointed when I saw that wasn't the case. 1-cost event, action, ready a friendly android character and heal 1 damage from it. I think that's a pretty good trade-off for 1. Again, you're not always going to want to ready every single card, but depending if you're readying a card that's going to deal a bunch of damage for you, or even specifically the fact that Vision himself is an android, right? You can ready Vision with this, and healing the extra damage is a bonus, but then also being able to act with them again if they're already boosted and powered up. One of the allies, healing the damage can be a really big deal. That's probably the more efficient target. For a lot of them, healing 1 damage and readying them can be a big swing. You can get a whole bunch more damage in. If they only take 1 consequential damage, it's getting a full other turn with that card and still allowing them to block. Reboot's a pretty cool card. It's very niche, obviously. Like, you're only going to include this in right now. Beyond Vision, I don't even know how many decks you'd be including Reboot in, because I don't know how many other decks you're running Android allies, enough of them for this to make sense. So maybe this is only a Vision card for the time being, but again, the game's going to evolve. We always see new uses come for cards. I just think it's a really, really good card overall. So those are all the cards. There's a whole bunch of really exciting stuff here. I really, really like Vision. We are going to have to wait a while because Vision is not coming till early 2022, it says. So this is not a 2021 release, and there's still a bunch of products delayed that we're waiting on, so that makes sense to me. But there's a lot of cool stuff here. Let me know in the comments what you think about Vision. Are you a Protection fan as it stands? And if not, are you interested and excited to see Protection getting a boost with a bunch of new cards? 4 new allies, obviously one of them signature, but like anytime we get 4 new allies in a deck, I'm excited and pumped about it. You know I'm an ally fan. So very, very cool all around. Again, let me know in the comments what you think, or where you stand with Vision, how he rates in terms of other decks you're waiting for, like you know, War Machine and things like that. Where does that rank for you, and which ones are you most excited to receive? Otherwise, thank you so much for watching another preview video. If you want to stay up to date with all of our content, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so that you don't miss any of the new posts. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.